This isn't the place you'd look.
Yeah.
I call Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Look, there are a couple of things I want to say about this bill, but if you give me 30 seconds, we have a brand that we take to the world. It's clean, green, 100% pure. It's about innovation in the space that allows us to make a difference. And I just would like to reiterate what Gareth Hughes has said and a number of my colleagues have said. We need to be innovative in this space if we really want to be seen to live the brand that is worth a substantial amount of money to our economy. And I just think we could have been a whole lot more innovative in this space, and I think we actually need to be, and not just from a pure, let's save the world. I think we actually need to be innovative in this space because our brand is worth, well, I know it was valued 12 years ago at $20 billion a year. And if we're not seen as leaders in this, then it slowly erodes our global leadership position in anything to do with clean, green, 100% pure. And the irony is the then Minister of Energy, when he announces this sort of stuff, turns up in a huge, big ministerial BMW that drinks diesel faster than my fire engine, and then announces, that's real fast, I tell you, and announces an energy-saving method, then jumps back in this BMW and races off again. And I just think that the government should be really walking the walk on this and not just talking the talk. But, Mr Speaker, Mr Chair, what I would like to talk about first and foremost, or secondly, is part two. Now, we've heard a lot about electric vehicles and how it will work, how it won't work, the pitfalls of this bill, the advantages and disadvantages, and what we could have done better. But there has been something snuck in here, Mr Chair, that I think we need to just tease out a little bit more. And this is about the applying of a levy and how this is going to work. So part two actually amends the Energy Fuels Levies and References Act 1989, and it's about charging levy for ECA. Now, the amendments, we're told, are necessary so ECA can use its levy funding for a full range of activities. At the moment, the ECA levy comes off the electricity users, but what they're seeking to do is spread the levy across electricity, transport fuels and gas consumers. At the moment, Mr Chair, the total amount ECA can levy is set by Cabinet. It's currently at $17.5 million. And the allocation of the levy will be spread across three sources, and that will be determined by the Minister based on advice from ECA. I wouldn't mind knowing the efficacy of this advice or what sort of advice you're going to put in front of the Minister. I mean, this is a pretty big call. I mean, we all know ECA from the ads that they run on television, and by and large they do a good job, I do believe. But there's some little sort of fishhooks in here I think we need to tease out. Mr Chair, I'm looking at section clause 11 2A, and it says, despite subsections 1 and 2, this is from the primary piece of legislation, levies recovered under section 23 may be applied for the purpose of meeting a portion of cost. Now, whenever I see in a bill may or must, there's a little bit of ambiguity. Must is an absolute, it has to happen, okay? There's no wiggle room there, it absolutely has to happen. When I see the word may, I know there's a little bit of ambiguity. And it always raises questions, under what circumstances will these levies be applied for the purpose of meeting a portion of those costs? And unfortunately, the Minister responsible for this piece of legislation has left. I'm unsure if the Minister in the chair at the moment is over this bill. I suspect he isn't, and I don't blame him because it's not his portfolio area. However, it would be good to know under what circumstances. When we talk about meeting a portion of the costs, again, it is always... I know sometimes you've got to leave a little bit of wiggle room there, but what portion of the costs are we talking about? So there is sufficient ambiguity in this clause to actually raise some questions that would be good to have the answer to. Mr Chair, I go down to 14A, and it talks about the Energy Efficiency Conservation Authority, ECA, consultation about a request for appropriation. And what this talks about, Mr Chair, is before ECA submits a request to the Minister about an appropriation of money, it must consult, okay? And it must consult with the people who are liable to pay the levy, and it must consult with any other representatives or any other persons whom ECA believes is significantly affected by the levy. And then what ECA must do is, when the request is submitted, report to the Minister on the outcome of that consultation. And I suppose, Mr Chair, the questions this brings up is, what will the level of consultation be? And the other question, which I think is very relevant, is, will the Minister take account of this consultation? And the reason I ask this, Mr. Chair,
Stuart Nash.
thank you much, Mr. Chair. The reason I ask this, Mr. Chair, is because what ICA is required to do here is consult with those whom it is going to take money off. And my initial impression is, if an agency or a body or a minister or a government department is going to take money off a sector, then I suspect the level of consultation will go something like this. Can we have more money? No, go away. Thank you very much. Now, I'm being a little bit glib here. Of course I am. But what I am saying is that an industry body or an industry advocacy group like ICA has to build an incredibly powerful business case before key players are going to accept a body taking money from them to be used to drive efficiency in an area where they make a whole lot of money, if you sort of get my point here. And so what I would really like to know, and again it's difficult with the Minister and the Chair, is this just consultation because we say they must consult? And if so, what is the Minister going to do with this consultation? So if in fact the result of the consultation is, look, we think that ICA has enough money, we think it doesn't need any more to deliver on its purpose, and we don't want to give any more money, is the Minister then going to say, well, I've heard that consultation, it's all very well, we're now going to charge you a little bit more money? And this is the concern I always have when I hear about consultation with industry. And I have no doubt, Mr. Chair, I have no doubt that ICA will approach the consultation in a proactive way. I mean, they'd be mad not to. And I would hate to cast aspersions on ICA's credibility, because I think they do a good job. I just want to put that on the table. But consulting with people you want to take money off or you want to, is always a little bit fraught with difficulty, and it does actually bring up conflicts of interest, I suppose. Mr. Chair, I'd also like to talk about gas levies. Now, this was something that was snuck in there as well. What's happened at the moment is gas levies are charged, and what we were told by officials is that the ability to collect these levies is difficult. They believe there has been under-collection by a significant amount, but the portion of levies compared to revenue is actually very, very small. But it is difficult, so what they've said is, look, there's an easier way to collect this levy, and that just means the retailers will collect it, and this bill sets out how they're going to do it. But we brought up at the Select Committee a concern we had, and that is whenever Parliament says to an industry or a group of consumers or companies, we are mandating you or we are requiring you to collect a levy, often a sector can use that as an excuse to increase the cost of that good or service to the consumer. And what we did hear from officials is that the amount of the increase in levy to the consumer is actually minuscule. I think we're talking about $2 million over the sector, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's about $2 million over here. So it's not much at all. But for every consumer, it's a fraction. And what we will be very concerned about, that's not, the concern is the wrong word. What we expressed concern about, and what we have said we will keep a very close eye on, is if the industry actually uses this as an excuse to increase the amount that it charges for its gas to the consumer. Because what we heard is there is no reason why they would do that, because the amount is so little that it just would make no difference to the average, to the bill, 0.001% or something. So if the gas companies do increase the price to the consumer, then we're going to take a good hard look at that, and we're going to make sure that they don't. But the interesting thing about this, Mr. Chair, and I'm a little bit confused about this, and I shouldn't be because I was on the committee, but the levy is not payable on, or a return is not required to include, pipe gas of a prescribed type, or pipe gas that is to be used for a prescribed purpose. And I'm not too sure what a prescribed type is, or whether what will happen is there will be something in the schedule that will outline what a prescribed type is or what a prescribed purpose is. So, in fact, the levies do not have to be collected. And unfortunately, I didn't get the main piece of legislation, so perhaps it's in there, but it's always a little bit difficult. The other thing also is Section 14, and it talks about regulations made under subsection 1. Now, what this is talking about is formulas for calculating or methods of calculating the levy rates. And I know I've got a couple of seconds and I'm probably going to run out of time on this. Is anyone going to jump up?
Call Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to